Have you ever thought that your constant sacrifices for others, your depleted energy, and your built-up resentment makes you more kind and selfless? I thought so too for a while. People-pleasing, it can seem noble, but mostly I find it a lack of respect and attention for ourselves and our own needs. When we constantly put others first, it's less about genuine kindness and more about self-doubt and fear. If your kind actions are driven by fear, guilt, and low self-worth, then think about it. Are you actually doing it for others out of pure love? If you're doing them because you feel obligated to, that can be a form of self-sacrifice that leaves you totally drained. Now, you're most likely an incredibly kind-hearted person. Most people pleasers are. Today, I want to help you give that kind-heartedness to yourself as much as you're giving it to others. Let's unpack this so that we can learn and grow from this self-sabotaging loop. Imagine a classmate asks you to send her your notes. You agree because you fear that she might view you as selfish if you don't. But agreeing out of fear, that's not what makes you the kind person that you are. That's more a people-pleasing action, sacrificing your own needs in fear of someone else's potential opinion about you. You can't keep pouring from an empty cup. People-pleasing, it drains your energy. It leaves you unable to be present for yourself and for others. I have been there, where I was bending over backwards to make someone happy, to the point where I looked tired, worn out, and like a shell of what I used to be. People-pleasing, it not only depletes your energy, but it also stops you from fully showing up for yourself and for others. Because when you show up for yourself first, you actually have something to pour for others. But the problem might lie in the fact that you unconsciously don't think that you deserve that consideration and prioritization. And that, my friend, is unsustainable and it needs to stop. Picture this. You've spent all weeks helping a friend study, sacrificing your own time to relax in the process. And by the end, you feel completely drained, resentful, and you've been unable to focus on your own assignments. Now, neither of you is getting your best grade because you couldn't show up as your brightest self, not for your friend and not for yourself. Had you first looked at your schedule and see what times you need to take care of your stuff and yourself, you could have then suggested when you would be able to meet after your own cup has been filled. And a big part of breaking free from people-pleasing is tuning in to what it is that you want. What does your inner voice say? Ask yourself, what am I comfortable with? What feels good in my gut? Because before you say yes to someone, pause and ask, what is it that I want? How does this feel for me? Learning to differentiate between genuine gut instincts and fear-driven responses is key. Oftentimes, the comfortable choice that aligns with old habits isn't the one that is necessarily the best for you. Every time we ignore our intuition, we increase our own frustration, unhappiness, and resentment. So before agreeing to lend your notes to that classmate, ask yourself, do I actually want to do this, or am I just saying yes out of guilt? Has this person actually been attentive in class, or have they just been sitting on their phone and knowing and assuming that someone's gonna just hand them their notes because they asked? If you realize that you're doing it out of fear and not because you want to, then it is okay to prioritize yourself first. That does not make you a bad person. It does not. I think setting boundaries is crucial for honoring your own needs. When someone asks something of you, it's okay to say no if it doesn't sit right with you. Clear boundaries make your actions more authentic, because then people know that you're helping them from a genuine willingness and not from an obligation. So let's say that your friend asks you to help them with something. You can always say no, but you can try to find a viable solution that works for both parties. Saying no does not mean that you say, no, I'm not going to do it. It can mean that, I can't tonight, or I can't this week. However, let's see if this, or this could work. Because that works for me. That you offer options that is within what you can handle. And not just what you can handle, what you will feel comfortable and good in. It's not always about what it is that we can do. We can do a lot, but that doesn't mean that we should. It doesn't mean that we have to do it. You don't need to sacrifice yourself for things that don't need sacrificing. And when you say no, don't think that you're inconvenient. You're not more inconvenient for saying no than they are for asking the question. I think a healthy balance is where both parties or all parties express their needs and work together to find a viable solution that works for everyone. Because one of the hardest parts about being a people pleaser is that the fear of being seen as mean or selfish for setting limits. If you know in your heart that you are a kind person, that you aim to try to find solutions that fits everyone, including yourself just as much, then a no won't change that. If someone is upset because you can't cater to them as they expect, remember, their reaction is not your responsibility. People can feel disappointed, and that is okay. You can't hinder people from having negative emotions or disappointing reactions, but just because they get them doesn't mean that that's your fault. Your opinion needs to matter the most. You have the full picture. You know your intentions. You have the entire backstory. Lean on yourself in that. Politely declining does not make you mean. It shows that you're honoring your commitments and that you respect yourself. True friends will respect your answer. So boundaries act as a filter in relationships. While some people might push back when you start setting limits, those who respect you, they will understand. They will respect your boundaries and your decisions, and that's the kind of people that you want to keep in your life. When you set boundaries, people will only seek to take advantage of you. They will naturally fade away, making rooms for relationships that are based on mutual respect. And of course, sometimes people take advantage, and sometimes people maybe should think more about how they ask for things and how often they do so. But at the same time, if you don't respect your boundaries, then how are people supposed to know when they've crossed them? It takes two to tango. Imagine you start declining the last-minute study requests from classmates. They want you to help them study. You've said yes, so now they just assume that you're going to help them. They always ask for your time without reciprocating anything. And when you set that boundary, over time, the classmates that actually respect and value you, they will respect that boundary. They will ask in a way that makes you feel comfortable on your terms, while the ones who didn't care and just took advantage, they will naturally drift away. You did not come to this earth to please people. I like to say that I always want to make the world a better place. Yes, but I did not come to this earth to please everyone. That is impossible. That is an impossible standard we set to ourselves. We have responsibility to please ourselves. I always want to create a more kind world, but that is impossible if you sacrifice yourself in the process. Now, people-pleasing, it can be a comfort zone. And even though it's exhausting, it's familiar. And it's less exhausting than breaking that pattern, because that takes energy. But true growth, it happens when you step out of that pattern and start putting yourself first. Challenge yourself to live in a way that honors your values and not just the habit of putting others' needs above your own. You have a responsibility to communicate your needs and wishes towards others. No one is going to do that for you. It'll get easier the more times you do it. The initial step is always the hardest, and then you'll realize that maybe it wasn't that hard. Over time, you'll start identify as a person who has boundaries, less than someone who lacks them, making setting and maintaining boundaries feel natural and easy. For example, let's say a group member expects you to do the extra work on a project because you've always helped out without hesitation, and you always go the extra mile and make sure that it gets done in a good way. Now, instead of falling into this old pattern, assuming that you don't enjoy being in it, you choose to discuss a fair division of the tasks. And sure, it feels uncomfortable initially because then you're insinuating that you're doing more work. But if it is true that you're doing more work, then it's not worth you being uncomfortable to make other people comfortable. I don't see why we always value other people's comfortableness above our own. Why we're always throwing ourselves under the bus for others. So it's going to be uncomfortable in the beginning, but then it's going to feel empowering to have brought up that discussion and to now do a more fair share of the work. Now, people pleasers, they often crave validation and approval from others. We assume that others will judge us for setting limits. But honestly, most people respect boundaries. If someone puts up a boundary, you're most likely going to respect it. Because other people want you to be happy and comfortable, and then they're happy to find out what it is that makes you happy and comfortable. When you learn to validate your own feelings, it's easier to express them. When you validate them, then you need less approval from others to validate them for you. And then you can act more confidently in your decisions. Others' validation does not weigh harder than your own. Other people don't need to agree or understand for your feelings to be valid. Let's say you didn't lend your notes to others this semester to not feel stressed and so that you don't feel used when other people are asking for your notes after class. Even if they don't understand, that is fine. Remind yourself that you're prioritizing your own well-being and your own emotions. Validation of your own emotions, it empowers you to stand in your decisions, no matter what other people think, because it's about what you are comfortable with. If you want other people to respect your boundaries, show them how you wish to be treated by being open and direct. Don't tiptoe around so much. I love tiptoeing around, but we need to practice to just go into it and say what it is that we think. Of course, in a kind way, but not just going around all the time. People are more at ease when they know that you're honest. Otherwise, they don't know how to act because they can tell that you're not telling the truth. And it makes them uncomfortable, which is the opposite of people pleasing, if I'm going to play that card with you. Let's say a family member expects you to help out with an event. If you've been suppressing your needs for a long time, setting a boundary, it might come in the form of an explosion. You might burst out because you've been bottling it in for so long. And to avoid this, do yourself a favor and try not to let it go too long and set that boundary as early as possible, as early as you feel that it has been crossed. And sometimes we don't know that we have a boundary until it's crossed, because then we feel that, wait, I didn't like this didn't feel good. Don't blame yourself for not setting it up right away. Like, how were you supposed to know? But learn from it. If you feel overwhelmed, take a moment and feel how it is that you want to respond and reflect on it. Consider the best way to communicate your feelings and needs in a fair way, even though you might feel sad, angry, depleted, and walked all over. Recovering from people-pleasing isn't easy, but I think it's essential for a life of fulfillment and self-respect. Let's skip all that unnecessary resentment and unworthiness. By setting boundaries, listening to yourself, and learning how to validate your own feelings, you begin to live in alignment with who you truly are and what it is that you truly want. You can start chasing those crazy dreams because you don't care what people are going to say about it. Because when you set those boundaries and you maintain them, you show people time and time again, you show yourself time and time again, that you value your own needs and in turn yourself. And of course, we should be there for each other in need and help out and be kind and not just say no to say no. But I think we can all feel it in our stomach when we're going against our gut or when we're seriously overextending ourselves. And this video is for those moments. I think meaningful relationships are built more on respect, less than on sacrifice. And by establishing boundaries, you're also gracefully showing others that they have the space to do the same.